Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to sift through all the noise and really get to the insights that matter. And today, we're diving into a topic that, well, I think resonates with so many of us parents, the modern challenges impacting our children's well-being. We're going to explore what we've kind of termed the modern parenting triangle. So we're focusing on sugar, screens, and stress. If you ever found yourself wondering, why your child seems maybe uncharacteristically wired or withdrawn or just a bit off, this deep dive might just shine a light on something, or maybe even all three things that you didn't realize were deeply connected and affecting them. And look, this isn't about isolated incidents, right? It's about understanding a health pattern, a really pervasive one, that modern families can learn to recognize and ultimately rebalance.
Exactly. And what's often overlooked, I think, is how these elements, while they seem benign, maybe even helpful sometimes, like a quick reward or a much needed distraction, maybe just a simple time filler. They can actually weave together. They form this continuous loop that impacts, well, everything from a child's mood right through to their long-term development.
Okay, yeah. Let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
This whole concept of the modern parenting triangle, it really hits home because it is so easy to see these issues just, in isolation, isn't it? A little extra sugar here, maybe
Yeah.
maybe more screen time than we'd really like, or just they had a particularly stressful day. But the sources we've looked at, they really reveal these aren't just separate concerns. They're often, well, deeply intertwined in a cycle that feeds itself.
That's precisely it. The research often describes them as almost invisible influences because, like you said, they present as convenient solutions. I mean, picture this scenario. Your child maybe starts the day with a sugary breakfast, right? Then maybe you hand them a tablet just to keep them occupied while you try to get some work done. And then by the afternoon, they're just melting down when it's time to put that device away. That's not just, a series of separate events. It's actually a dynamic where the sugar, the screen time, and the resulting stress can really amplify each other.
Yeah. And it really seems like sugar is often the maybe unacknowledged catalyst in this triangle. I was actually quite struck by the data showing that most kids consume, nearly 3 times the recommended daily sugar intake. And it's not just the obvious stuff, the candies and sodas, is it?
No, not at all.
It's lurking in things we think are healthy snacks, fruit juices, those flavored yogurts, even ketchup. So what are some of the less visible ways this impacts a child's overall well-being beyond just, hyperactivity?
Right, that's a crucial distinction to make because beyond that immediate sugar rush and then the inevitable crash, which, yeah, can leave kids irritable and really struggling with concentration. The long-term impact is, well, it's quite profound, actually. There was a Harvard study in 2023, for instance, that drew a direct line between high sugar intake in early childhood and increased anxiety levels and also a greater risk of obesity by age 10. But it's not just about the calories, you see. Sugar significantly impacts the gut microbiome, and we now understand that plays such a critical role in brain health, in neurotransmitter production, which in turn affects mood and cognitive function. So it really challenges our traditional, maybe simpler view of sugar's effects.
Wow. It's just astonishing how deeply sugar affects not just physical health, but yeah, mental and emotional well-being too. Speaking of brain impact, let's maybe pivot to screens now. They become such an ingrained part of our daily lives, haven't they? Almost like a default tool sometimes, just to keep kids entertained or quiet. But the science on excessive screen time is, frankly, it's quite sobering when you dig into it.
hmm And when we look at the broader developmental picture, excessive screen time affects far more than just, say, brain development and emotional regulation. It really impacts sleep quality, which is just foundational for everything else, doesn't it? And even physical things like eyesight and posture. But what's particularly concerning, I think, are the findings for children under 6. In that age group, overuse has been linked to pretty significant delays in speech, persistent attention issues, and more frequent emotional outbursts. I mean, the World Health Organization recommends no more than 1 hour of screen time for children under 5. Yet the average child in this age group is often exposed to, get this, 4 to 6 hours daily across various devices.
4 to 6 hours
Yeah.
compared to 1.
Yeah.
That's a staggering difference.
Yeah,
The sheer scale of that discrepancy is quite alarming.
it really is.
And I can just imagine the ripple effects, which I suppose brings us squarely to the third point of the triangle, stress. It's easy for us as adults sometimes to dismiss a child's stress. We think, what on earth did they have to be stressed about? But the sources we reviewed, they make it undeniably clear that stress is, well, it's no longer just an adult problem, not by a long shot.
No, and it's so vital to recognize the unique pressures children face today. It's different. They're navigating academic demands much earlier, complex social situations, constant overstimulation from screens, and even emotional instability that can be rooted in poor diet, like we just discussed with sugar. All these factors contribute to what the sources describe as a kind of pervasive, low grade chronic stress. And interestingly, the signs of this stress can manifest in quite surprising ways. You might see mood swings, sure, but also things like bedwetting, nail biting, maybe loss of appetite, nightmares, various behavioral challenges. What we consistently see is that this isn't an isolated problem. It's often fueled by irregular sleep, too much sugar, and excessive screen exposure, which, as you can imagine, creates a remarkably difficult cycle to break.
Right, so we've got the sugar causing those energy crashes and mood swings, then the screens leading to overstimulation, attention issues, maybe poor sleep, and then the stress building up from, well, all sides, including those first 2 points. It truly clarifies how all 3 points of this triangle, sugar, screens, and stress, are so deeply interconnected. They're feeding into each other in this continuous, often invisible loop.
Precisely, yeah. Consider the typical sort of spiraling effect. A sugar rush leads to a crash, right? That makes a child irritable, moody. So a parent, maybe just seeking a moment of peace, might offer a screen to calm them down. Seems logical. But then the screens overstimulate the brain, disrupting those crucial sleep patterns. Less sleep, in turn, amplifies stress. And when stress levels rise, what do children often crave? Comfort foods, which tend to be sugary.
Ah, right. Back to the start.
Exactly, restarting the entire cycle. And look, this isn't about assigning blame to parents, not at all. It's really about building awareness of these powerful reinforcing patterns so we can actually interrupt them effectively.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, recognizing the pattern so we can disrupt it. And the encouraging news here, I think, is that the sources don't just meticulously identify the problem. They don't just leave us there. They also offer truly practical, science-backed actions we can take. And we've distilled them into what feel like, hopefully, genuinely achievable steps for busy families.
Yes, and looking at the broader implications, these actions are really about subtly re-engineering your child's environment, just shifting things slightly to support natural balance. For instance, a really foundational step is just consciously swapping out those ultra-processed sugary snacks, swapping them for whole real foods like, dates, berries, nuts, simple swaps. And when it comes to screens, creating distinct tech-free routines can make a huge difference, especially, say, during the first hour of the day and the last hour before bed. That can significantly help regulate a child's nervous system and definitely improve sleep.
Okay, so tech-free zones or times. What about stress?
Yeah, addressing stress. It can be as simple as incorporating maybe a 10-minute family breathing exercise together, or just a quiet wind-down ritual before bed. Nothing complicated. Another really powerful tool is involving kids in food choices and preparation. It sounds small, but it empowers them, and it often increases their willingness to actually try healthier options.
Makes sense. They have some ownership.
Exactly. And also, don't forget movement. Movement is incredibly potent for stress release. Even just 15 minutes of dancing around the living room or a brisk walk outside, maybe some playful yoga, it can make a huge difference. And finally, just diligently limiting processed foods, and especially artificial colors, is crucial. There's demonstrable evidence these can worsen hyperactivity in those emotional swings.
Right. So we've journeyed through these intricate ways that sugar, screens, and stress can really intertwine in your child's life, forming this modern parenting triangle. It seems really clear now that these aren't just isolated factors, are they? They're part of a deeply connected system. And understanding how they interplay, that feels like the essential first step towards actually breaking the cycle. The research we've explored today offers some incredibly practical, science-backed ways to bring more balance into your home. Simple things, really. Food swaps, embracing movement, prioritizing that restorative sleep.
And if we kind of zoom out and consider the bigger picture here, it truly boils down to this, I think. Consistent, deep connection and just conscious presence
Yeah.
that can naturally shift this modern triangle. It can move it into a more balanced, more harmonious state for your child. It's a profound shift, really, moving away from seeking quick fixes towards cultivating lasting well-being.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening right now this week? Maybe consider this. In our modern quest to give our children everything, the latest tech, the convenience foods, the pack schedules, are we perhaps inadvertently overlooking the profound power, maybe even revolutionary power, of simply being there, just truly present, truly connected, helping them navigate these modern challenges? What small intentional step might you take this week to create that space, knowing that ultimately parenting isn't about achieving perfection, right? It's really about embracing and prioritizing presence.